The one lever nobody's talking about. Let me be straight with you. Courts don't move price. Partnerships don't move price. And that OCC ruling everyone's losing their mind over, it won't move price either. I've run the numbers. I've stress tested every scenario, and every single time, the math keeps pointing back to the same two things. Regulatory clarity becoming actual law, and Ripple making one very specific decision about its own treasury. Today I want to focus on that second one, because clarity, that's Washington's game. We can't control it. But the other trigger, that one sits inside a single boardroom. And if that boardroom makes the right call, everything changes. Here's the problem most XRP holders don't fully understand. Back in 2017, Ripple took 55 billion tokens, more than half of everything that will ever exist, and put it into escrow. At the time, it looked like a protective move. Holders were nervous. Ripple was sitting on a massive chunk of supply and selling from it regularly. So the escrow was the answer. Don't worry, the message was. We can't just dump on you. Except that's not quite what happened. What actually got built was a system that releases up to 1 billion tokens every single month. Ripple takes what it needs, then relocks the rest. Historically around 70%. So roughly 200 to 300 million tokens hit the market on a predictable schedule, month after month, year after year. Do the math across a full year, and you're looking at roughly 3 billion fresh tokens entering circulation. Every year, like clockwork. That's not a safety vault. That's a tap that never gets turned off. And here's where it gets interesting. While that tap has been running, people have been pointing at XRP's on-chain activity and wondering why the price isn't responding. Transaction volumes up, institutional interest growing, real usage happening on the ledger. But the price keeps dragging. Why? Because it doesn't matter how many buyers show up if the shelves keep getting restocked faster than they empty. You've got roughly 3 billion tokens flowing in annually, and ETF custody pulling maybe 1.5 billion out. The tradable float is still growing by over 1 billion tokens a year. Demand is real. It's just getting quietly swallowed by supply before it can push the price anywhere. That's the gap. That's the entire explanation. Now here's what changes everything. Ripple relocks that escrow by choice. Not because the protocol forces it. There's no code making them do it. It's a business decision, made repeatedly, and it can be unmade the same way. If Ripple decides to freeze the escrow completely, not relock 70%, but stop all of it, that 3 billion annual inflow drops to zero overnight. Meanwhile, demand keeps doing what it's been doing. ETFs keep buying from the open market. Institutional flows keep pulling tokens into custody. But now there's nothing refilling the shelf on the other side. Exchange supply is already sitting at an 8-year low, around 2 billion tokens available right now. If demand just holds steady at today's pace and nothing new enters circulation, that available supply drains out within roughly 18 months. After that point, buyers aren't picking from a comfortable pile of willing sellers. They're competing for tokens held by people who don't want to sell. That's when price stops moving sideways and starts moving vertically. Now let me show you the actual numbers instead of just describing them. I'm modeling 3 variables. Inflow, how much dollar demand enters per year, which clarity largely determines. Reactivity, how aggressively a thin float reprices when that demand lands. And duration, how long the freeze holds. Running a conservative linear model with $6 billion annual inflow and 10 times reactivity, here's what the outputs look like. Year 3, around $4. Year 5, around $6. Year 7, around $8. And that's the boring version, the linear one. Reality tends to be non-linear because rising price attracts more inflow, which thins the float further, which increases reactivity, which accelerates the price move again. That feedback loop is exactly what happened with Bitcoin. If XRP behaves similarly, the $10 and $20 scenarios aren't fantasy. They're a different set of assumptions on the same model. The $50 case exists too, but it requires everything going right simultaneously, including XRP developing Bitcoin-level holding behavior. Possible, not guaranteed. Before I close, let me kill one narrative quickly. The OCC. Everyone's treating it like a catalyst. It isn't. The OCC regulates banks. It decides what banks can hold on their balance sheets. That's the limit of its power. It cannot classify XRP as a commodity. That authority belongs to the CFTC, the courts, and eventually Congress. And whatever the OCC says today can be reversed with a letter from the next administration. It already reversed itself once in 2025. That's not a foundation to build a bull case on. So why would Ripple ever actually freeze the escrow? Because Ripple's entire net worth is essentially XRP, somewhere around 38 billion tokens, worth more than the company itself by most measures. Giving up a few $100 million a year in discretionary token sales to potentially re-rate that $40 billion stake several times over isn't sacrifice. It's the most obvious trade in the room. Self-interest points directly at the freeze. No heroism required. One company, one dial. The mechanism is real, the math is real, and the bull case doesn't need magic to work. It just needs one boardroom to do what's already in their financial interest.